This episode of the Boss Rush Podcast is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the Boss Rush family of podcasts, head to bossrush.net or our Patreon at patreon.com/bossrushmedia. Thanks for helping us build something better. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Boss Rush Podcast, a great place to play games and be better. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Derrick, for this Boss Rush Extra. And joining me, as always, is the PC Muscle Race himself, LeRon Dawkins.
Hey, what's poppin'?
Hi, LeRon.
Hey, Corey.
I almost did the ally thing again, but I was gonna say PC Muscle Race, LeRon, ally Dawkins.
I was ready for it this time. I was ready for it, but
just slap it on like a hyphenated last name.
I'll update my social medias to reflect that.
Do it.
LeRon, ally.
Doesn't your middle name start with an A anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, it works.
But not LeRon. It's LeRog.
LeRog, ally.
That might not be I'm inspired.
Oh no. Also joining us is the Mad Pharmacist herself, Stephanie Klimov.
Hey.
Also, I meant to say this earlier. Is that the Zelda Splatoon crossover shirt?
Yes, it is. Sorry. I got the Ganondorf one. Ow. And then Nikolai got the Link Courage one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So who gets the Zelda one?
You do, PK Power Pack Klein.
I get the Zelda one?
Yeah.
Wisdom, the wisest of us all.
I am the wisest of us all, aren't I?
Yeah. You're single. You have no kids. Look at you.
Man, wise.
My waking
Wise.
time playing video games.
I know. The sacrifices we make
Yes,
for our
we
kids. Anyways, speaking of children, tonight's topic. I don't know where I was going with that. Tonight's topic is are developers and publishers afraid of developing new IP?
Are they afraid of making new children, or do they just want to keep cloning their own?
I'm very afraid of making new children. So
Snip, snip.
got enough. LeRon.
I heard that.
LeRon, you said you thought long and hard about this topic earlier. I'm gonna let you start. Are developers afraid and publishers afraid of developing new IP?
It is definitely the publishers that are afraid. The reason why is because once we cross into this slippery era of like remakes and remasters, like that's what we've been plagued with. Like I feel like we don't see enough innovation as far as like new new content, because like I love my nostalgia for games and stuff. It's why I'm all for video game preservation, being that dirty word called emulators and stuff like that. There's something to be said about the original property, stuff like that. But I feel like we've hit an age where like it's kind of rampant, and sometimes it feels balanced. Like Dead Space remake, amazing. We didn't ask for it. We're glad it's here. People, and then the other end of the scope, the Final Fantasy VII remake, right? People asked for that, and Square Enix delivered. But then we have I am not one of the people that believe this one, when I call this one out. But there are a lot of people saying like The Last of Us Part 1 should not have been remastered. There's a lot of people that say that, stuff like that, and like especially when you look at Sony being a first party company and like making like brand new IPs and stuff, why were they, the question comes like, why were they wasting time on something that's not even old enough to have like really garnered a remake, but but I'm glad they did it, because like I played some of it on the ROG Ally that I have, and it looks fucking amazing.
I'm really
amazing. Feels great, Go ahead.
No, sorry, I was waiting till you were done and I misjudged.
I'm just kind of like doing word salad right now. That's all.
No, I'm just really glad you mentioned the word nostalgia because I do feel like there are several factors here, and I do feel like for the most part, developers are afraid to create new IP because just first of all, over time, for the most part, right, costs more and more to make a video game. No,
Mhm.
especially the AAA titles. It just costs more. So the bar for risk is high to lose money on a game. So if you create a new IP, that's compare it, higher risk than going with something tried and true. So I can see how developers might lean towards what's already been established and have a fan base and quote unquote guaranteed sales. But another part, LeRon, and that's what kind of triggers, not the right word, is nostalgia because we're finally at the age where we used to talk about this with our parents' generation where, oh, they're in their nostalgia phase. They're talking about all those things from the 60s and the 70s. Why are they, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Now we're getting into that phase. Look at me and the boss rush that we just talked about. I just spent like over $100 with Nintendo 64 video game guys. Are you freaking kidding me? And so now, you know, game devs and publishers are seeing this as a major opportunity to kind of cash in on that and be like, all right, I'm not saying it's easy to remake a game by any means or remaster them, but it's kind of an easier of the two. Create a brand new IP that might not work, or remake and bring back some of these games that these gamers just really feel like they want to play again. So I don't know, just nostalgia. I just feel like the generations now got older. We are now shifting. We are older. We want to buy these things. We are willing to buy these things.
Mhm.
It's almost kind of like with with movies and cinema. And I'm just going to grab the easiest example, and that's Disney with them making the live action films. Um, you know, in addition to the new audience, they're capturing us that grew up in the 90s. Like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, Beauty and the Beast again, Little Mermaid again. Uh, you know,
You want to hear something?
Mhm.
Side tangent, based because you brought up the Disney remake stuff. In 2024, Disney parks will no longer be having the original Little Mermaid meet and greet. It's all going to be the live action meet and greets.
oh,
Interesting.
like,
the The ride is still going to be the animated movie, but the meet and greet's going to be from the live action movie.
okay.
So we're gonna see a realistic flounder try to sign something.
No, it's just Ariel and Eric.
Oh.
Oh,
What about Ursula?
No, she's scary, man. Yeah, I don't know how
obvious.
they're going to handle that.
Well,
Aquafina Gull.
well, we know that's gonna definitely. Wow.
Stephanie, what were you going to say? I can't handle them.
Yeah, I didn't say anything.
I can't beat that. I can't beat that.
I didn't say anything.
We're gonna let that just
Yeah.
marinate.
I only found that out. I only found that out because we're planning our trip for February, and yeah, I was like looking up stuff because I'm I'm really trying to base our trip around what my daughter wants to do because she'll be 5.5 when we go, and like it's I don't know. I just feel like that's like the time where we should be like, oh, characters, I guess, and kid stuff. And I was like, oh, well, that's changing.
I
Neat.
mean, yeah, for the kids, it'll be fine. Obviously, for someone like me, I'll be sad because I grew up with Redhead Ariel, but it's certainly not offending me that they're updating it. It's just me being old and going, oh, I like the original because I grew up with the original. And then I'm
Mhm.
also going to be not surprised to hear that other unfortunate loud minority that already had issues with the remake to begin with, but they can just shut up.
Mhm.
So, but
They have.
anyway, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just
They
saying, but anyway, dot dot dot.
they have had the live action aerial meet and greet, and they like swap them out, like whatever. Like And whenever they bring out the remake one, they have extra security, which is really sad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
My gosh.
Why can't both just be there? I mean, we're already talking about a fictional character, so why not have both? But what do I know? Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how that. I really don't know what they're gonna do or how it's gonna work, or even they'll stick with that if they get enough backlash or anything. But I just feel bad for the people who are playing these characters.
Right?
It's just.
I feel bad for the kids who watch the parents argue about why this character needs to be that color.
Yeah. But Stephanie, you are right though. Like Disney, like when they try to create new IP, they've been failing. Like their new IP has been failing. Strange Worlds was failing. Like did terrible at the box office. Elemental did terrible at the box office.
Yes, Elemental, yes.
But we also had the good ones like Encanto and Frozen. Like those
aren't.
ones were amazing.
Yeah, but Encanto did terrible at the box office. It didn't find an audience until it came to Disney Plus. Also, it kind of came out like right at the end of like the worst part of the pandemic. So maybe that.
Well, so would you say Frozen was probably like the last biggest successful quote unquote new IP? But when did that even come out now? Like
2007.
See, like I think Frozen's so new, but 2007 is oh my
That's a
gosh.
long time ago.
What?
think it
Are
was
you sure
2007.
2007?
2000. No, maybe it was
No.
2013. I don't know.
I was like, dude, I graduated from
I
high
think
school in 06.
2013 sounds
Yeah,
sounds right.
2013.
Okay, whew.
What
Well,
was 2007?
that's still 10 years ago though.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, but I mean, they're making like Disney's going back to the well. They're making Frozen 3. They're making Toy Story 5. They're making.
Why are they making another?
They're making another Incredibles. They're making.
Okay, I'm happy about that. But why are they making another fucking Toy Story?
yeah, didn't they say they were done?
Because yeah, they did, but nothing is selling, and like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how any of this. And I mean, remember when they tried like their space stuff like before they bought Star Wars? Like, LeRon, do you remember John Carter from Mars?
Yes.
When
Yeah,
they tried to do
actually, that movie wasn't that bad.
No, that movie's actually pretty cool. But
Yeah.
like that movie failed, and like Prince of Persia was actually kind of good. And I mean,
yeah, but also, what were they thinking?
I mean, that movie was like their biggest live action hit since Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Maybe they just need to stop spending money on special effects and try and go back to the old style of,
Making good quality movies. No.
Yeah, because like even Indiana Jones, like it wasn't that bad of a movie, but it's gonna fail
awesome.
because most of the budget went into the special effects, and it's impossible for it to make the money.
Well, first of all, Indiana Jones does not need a $275 million budget. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
that most of it was blown in the first 20 minutes
before marketing. Man, that first 20 minutes of that movie was
amazing. Pretty stellar. But
yeah, like see what I mean? Like they're in cinema, they love rehashing just tried and true IPs. A, because it's been successful, and B, we've now moved up a whole generation. So I can see that applying to video games, especially when they cost more to make, the more graphically beautiful and whatever they are. So, and that's definitely not to say new IP cannot be successful, right? We've seen it. What would you mention? Like Ghost of Tsushima was a good example. So it's just, yeah. I mean, you see, like, look at that's all that the indies. Oh, doggy.
Puppy.
All the indie scene is essentially like all new IP because they're more willing to take the risk. It's lower budget, so to speak.
Which is kind of hilarious because like when the indie scene makes a sequel to their game, the sequel usually fails. Right. I mean, I think Hades 2 is really going to be the first kind of like true sequel to a game that's going to be like, actually going to succeed. Because I mean, you look at like Spelunky 2, like, yeah, it sold decently well, but like not nearly as well as the first one. Or
How about
Uh,
Blossom Tales 2?
yeah, Blossom Tales
Yep.
2 did not sell as much. Like the sequels just kind of for indies is just kind of like I think people go to indies for their new stuff, right? They want to experience something new, and then when you get something that's very similar, it's like, well, you know. So I I just I don't know. I think why major publishers and are afraid to develop new IP is because you have to really invest in it. You know, it's going to cost you a ton of money to develop it, and you got to do like the multimedia strategy. Like, do we do comic books? Do we do, do we do short films like the way that Overwatch does? Do we do, how do we build hype for this? And you have to build out a universe and planned sequels because you want to invest in the IP. And like, you could get something that's really stellar, like Horizon, or you could get something that's going to put you out of business. And companies don't I mean, it's why Disney bought Marvel, it's why Warner Brothers owns DC and Harry Potter and all these mega franchises, right? Is because they can count on those to sell money.
Yep.
I mean, Harry Potter hasn't been in the zeitgeist for what, 10 years, 15 years? I mean, there's super fans, but like look at the way Hogwarts Legacy sold, you know and then they announced that new HBO show that everybody's excited for. And it's like, I mean, Harry Potter's back, but that's an IP that's existed for 25 years, 30 years now, you know?
I could be wrong and set me straight, but I would think this is where Xbox has that opportunity to really shine in that space because, well, okay, so
You would
yeah,
think.
you would
Mhm.
think, yeah, because I think, look,
You,
Nintendo. Mm, go
Oh,
ahead.
Redfall, how
Nintendo,
you've
well,
fallen.
Nintendo, Nintendo usually brings a new IP every generation. Last generation was Splatoon. The Wii was, what was the Wii? I guess Wii Sports maybe. And like,
What was
That's not.
Switch's new IP?
um,
Arms.
yeah, Arms and Good
Oh,
Job. And,
1-2 switch, and
oh, one, two,
everybody
so okay.
1-2 switch.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Arms would be their new IP this gen, right? So at least, I
That
mean,
that that IP is going to stay on the Switch. I can tell you that right now.
it sold 3 million units. I don't know. I
Is
wouldn't
that is that considered a success by Nintendo numbers though?
for a launch game. I mean, probably. I mean,
When you say that, when you say it like that, a launch game, yeah, okay.
I mean, look, I don't really need an Arms 2, and it's definitely not coming to the Switch, Ed. But I do, I do think we will get some sort of Arms sequel at some point.
Legs.
Yeah.
Where you,
Fingers.
it's peripherals where you take the remotes and you put them, strap them onto your
Oh my
legs.
gosh.
Oh no. But I mean, Stephanie, your point. Yeah, Xbox has a real opportunity to do this with new IP. But guess what games they're publishing? Fable, Perfect Dark, Forza, Gears. I
and
mean,
they're praying that
Mhm.
Bethesda, all these
yeah,
companies they acquired are bringing like something new,
Doom,
which
Quake,
honestly is why.
Wolfenstein.
Yeah, which honestly is why I think like Microsoft didn't put the kibosh on Redfall
Hmm.
when they knew the dissension that was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Now, granted, Starfield is a new IP, right?
Indiana
Clockwork
Jones.
Revolution is coming, which is a new IP. Um, South of Midnight, new IP. So yeah, they're putting out some new IP, and they look great, right? Like these new IP look great. I'm actually more excited for some of those than I am of the returning quote unquote IP. Um,
Well,
but
they also have the like one of the more successful service games as a service game that was also an original IP.
yeah, Sea of Thieves.
Hmm.
Um, I do like how they have integrated other IP into Sea of Thieves. Like they did the Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. They just did the Monkey Island crossover. There's been a few others. So yeah, I mean, Microsoft has their games as a service really locked down, like really successful games as a service that nobody ever really, considers because nobody thinks about them because they have such a loyal fan base, right? Like Elder Scroll. I mean, granted, a lot of them are Bethesda's, but uh, Sea of Thieves, Fallout 76, which has had a big resurgence the last 6 months. Elder Scrolls Online, Halo. What,
Forza
LeRon? You look like you
Horizon.
want to say something.
No, something caught my eye.
And like Forza is going to be a game as a service. State of Decay 3 will probably be a game as a service. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see way more new IP out of them, right? And yeah, Indiana Jones isn't really a new IP, but it'll be a new take on Indiana Jones. So I guess whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it just feels like all these companies are going back to the well a little bit. And the one thing that Sony has going for it is that they have created new IP in the last
Yep.
few years, right? And yeah, they brought back God of War, okay, but we know Santa Monica's working on a new IP. Ghost of Tsushima is super successful. Horizon's been super successful. Death Stranding, though not theirs, but that's been pretty successful, right? Like, so I do like that. Like they're not trying to go back and like, oh, Naughty Dog, you made The Last of Us, so now make us Jack and Daxter 4 or 5 or whatever, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing that. And
Hey, give me that remaster.
yeah,
I would love to see a Jack and Daxter trilogy remaster.
put the 4th game in there. Nobody ever talks about the 4th game.
Wait, was there an official 4th game?
Yeah, The Lost
there
Frontier.
was. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Why did I
okay.
keep forgetting about that?
Because it
you
came
know
out
what?
3 years after the PS3 came out on PS2.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
by Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
And give us Daxter, damn it.
Mm.
Bring
Daxter
it out
was
of
fun.
PSP.
That was a fun game.
So like I totally give Sony that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think I wish Microsoft would take a page out of that book. Like if you're working with Crystal Dynamics and IDOS, like have them work on new IP. I don't need a Crystal Dynamics develop Perfect Dark, If you're going to have them work on some sort of lady shooter game, make a new Tomb Raider. That's what I want.
It's a lady shooter game.
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of wonder though, like now that I kind of think about this, like I'm looking at my video game library and like indie games have definitely really pushed it. And I love how like even developers have gone into the Kickstarters to make some, familiar but new IPs like Bloodstained is the one that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe we just let these like bigger publishers just keep blasting what they have and let the indies come up with the fresh idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think that's actually what's happening because I think I'm glad you said this because I was thinking this a while back. I think honestly the big publishers are sitting there saying like, hey, like they would look at an idea like, for example, they would look at an idea like Stray and be like, nah, that game will never do anything. So they don't want to waste the money on it. So they turn around, they say, let someone else make that game and watch it crash and burn. And then the moment it actually does something like the numbers Stray did, for example, then they're like, oh, we need to start making quirky like animal games, and stuff like that, or incorporate more animal physics or whatever into like the next game that's going to be injected into part of this ongoing franchise and stuff like that. I really think that's because at the end of the day, like all these companies, all they want to do is follow the money, which Disney is doing it with these live action remakes, which I still think like I've always felt like when it comes to this, when it comes to that, like Disney, for example, like they should have just been concentrating on either making sequels or making brand new stuff.
Well, you know why Disney's remaking stuff, right? It's so they can trademark the newest versions of these characters, so they can keep their, keep
The
these
intellectual
characters
property.
out of
Public domain.
public domain, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the issue they're fighting with Mickey Mouse right now, right? Like Steamboat Willie goes into public domain next year, but if you look at all the cartoons, right, every version of Mickey Mouse that appears in a cartoon or a movie is a separate trademark. So that's why every time you see Mickey Mouse, he's been redesigned, every 5 to 10 years because they want to keep that trademark going.
Never quite thought of that, honestly, because
Yeah.
I just feel like, man, like these are some of the ugliest versions of Mickey Mouse I've seen as of late.
Yeah.
Well, LeRon, I think we might be on a similar wavelength tonight because Stray popped into my head, and I think we can also rely on kind of the larger of the indie publishers because at this point, even though I say Annapurna Interactive is indie, they're a big indie. Same with
Mhm.
Devolver. I would put those
Mhm.
two in the buckets of yeah, they're indie, but they're kind of in the middle.
Mhm.
Yep.
And Devolver comes up with wildly interesting new IP.
Yeah.
And like with Stray again with Annapurna, I mean, I'm sure people would love at least DLC to Stray, if not, I don't know, a follow up with that. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like with those slightly larger indie publishers, we might see that catch on a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I do think some of these bigger, or at least first parties, are going to start. I mean, in the last showcase, yeah, granted didn't show really anything, but like Sony's games as services, right? Like what was that one with the terrible name? The shooter that gosh, why can't I think of anything? That what's her face? Jade Raymond is working on. Um,
Oh shit, I can't
it had the
remember
dollar
either.
sign for the S, and I don't remember
Oh,
what the name of the game is called.
Yeah,
That's all I can remember about it.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Um,
Um,
and then, but like in Bungie, like I'm a huge Destiny fan, but they're
Fair
developing
Games.
Fair Games. Yeah, they're developing 2 new IP right now. On top of Marathon, which is not a new IP, but this is a reimagining. Um, and then like I'm looking at Xbox's studios right now just to because I know they have a bunch of stuff in development. Like Double Fine's working on a new IP. Um,
Double Fine's
Obs-
good with new IPs, though.
yeah, Obsidian has come out with 4 new IP since the acquisition, right? With
Very true.
Outer Worlds, Pentiment, Grounded, Avowed, and they have another game in development outside of Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed right now. Um, and Exile, Clockwork Revolution.
hmm.
What's crazy about those Obsidian new IP is that they are new IP. They're not that different from what they're good at, but yet it does an IP like a new IP have to be super different from anything else to make it successful?
I don't think so. I mean, you look at Larian right now. Look how much success they're having with Baldur's Gate 3, and they came off a new IP, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well, the saying at this point, like I don't think anything has not been done before for the most part, you
yeah,
know? So just make it different enough. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, just the words of Pablo Picasso, right? The best art is always stolen. Um, ZeniMax Online is making a new IP. Um, Tango GameWorks is making a new IP. It's rumored to be a JRPG, actually.
Nice.
Mm.
Rare is making Everwild. Supposedly, still maybe. At least
Mm-hmm.
that's it's listed here. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna see quite a few things. I know the Coalition is working on new IP after Gears, but they've had to shelve it because it's all hands on deck for Gear 6. But there'll be a new IP after that, probably a third person shooter. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see a resurgence of new IP in the coming years, right? But it's gonna be a while because games take forever to develop now, unfortunately.
hmm
Um, so yeah,
They just need to get it together like sooner than later.
yeah, I
Because like ultimately what's going to happen is the the fan base the
mhm,
fan base is just like how things are happening right now with the SAG after strike and all this stuff in the SAG after and the WGA strikes and stuff like that. Like people are starting to catch up to what's going on here,
mhm,
stuff like that. Which is why, like on the Hollywood side, like like all these bombastic ass sequels, like the MCU is starting to get their clock punched in, the streaming side and all this stuff, gaming side it's happening that way too. Like
mhm,
people are starting to notice, and people are saying, "What the fuck is up?"
mhm. And like games is so hard too now, right? Where like they want you it's all about the engagement and how long you're engaged with the game now. That's why everybody's chasing the game as a service. I mean, look at Destiny. It's a 10-year game. It's been out. This IP has been around for 10 years, and people buy their new version of it every year, right? And you look at games that have tried to copy it, like The Division. The Division 1 was successful, but the engagement wasn't there after the first couple months. And then 2 years later, you get The Division 2, and like that fell off really hard too, to the
Yeah.
point where like the PC version still isn't fixed because they don't think it's worth investing the money in it. And what were some of the other Anthem, right? I mean, that was a great idea for a new IP that just bombed,
Well, it's crazy to think that like what they introduced of Anthem was not what the final product wound up looking like.
Yeah. It wasn't even, they came up with the name of Anthem like 2 days before that press con or something ridiculous before they
Wow,
revealed it.
really?
Yeah, it was called Beyond originally.
Yes, it was called Beyond. I remember that, and then
And
and then Beyond Two Souls was happening on PlayStation.
Oh man.
yeah. And then and then like 10 months or something like 10 months before it was revealed, they added the flying. And it had been in development for like 3 or 4 years at that point. Well, since Mass Effect 3, right? So and like the game wasn't even originally supposed to have flying in it, which is hilarious because that's literally the best part of the entire game. So I don't know, man. I want new IP, but like Stephanie said, I really enjoy the old stuff too. And
Is there any particular like either theme or genre of like a new IP that you think would be fun and fresh?
man, what I would like to see is like almost like futuristic fantasy, which is a little bit what Destiny plays on a little bit, but that was more in like the beginning as opposed to now, but like almost like future text type stuff, like almost the way that like Final Fantasy 7 looks, or some of the later Final Fantasies, right? Where like it's this kind of, you assume it's a fantasy world, but like there's also a lot of technology that runs the world, and spaceships and all these cool things. I think that's a genre that's not really explored a whole lot.
Mm.
Bandai Namco was doing a fairly decent job with their God Eater and their Code Vein and Scarlet Nexus.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only problem is it didn't get the Monster Hunter guys like me on board.
Mm-hmm. The thing too is like for every one of those games you have like 7 or 8 sci-fi games, like sci-fi only games, and then you have like 1,000 high fantasy games.
Right. You're right. So that's a nice blend, and I can see that as like a nice action adventure, because those action adventure titles is broad enough where you could have room for diversity versus more, and I'm not saying it because I'm dumping on them, but like fighting games, racing games, like those can be very successful, but because they're very narrow with what you can do, I think it would be harder to create like, for example, like why would Nintendo ever want to create a new racing IP when they've got Mario Kart 8 lasting for a bajillion years and sells millions of copies? But I feel like an action adventure or a sort of RPG are really kind of, I hate to say it, safe spaces to create new things.
Yeah. Well, that's where Sony kind of finds themselves too. Like a lot of like quote unquote hardcore gamers complain that they're all third person over the shoulder action games, but those are, like you said, Stephanie, the safest ones. And I mean,
that's their meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I mean, all their games sell 10 million plus, 15 million plus. I think God of War is at 20 something million now. Horizon 20 something million. Spider-Man's going to sell probably like 30 or 40 million by the time the console's over, right? So
Yeah.
I think anything that's a spin or a play on historical fiction would be great as far as new IP, because you're still borrowing from history. So, you have a reference point, but that's where the historical fiction point comes in. Twist it, make it your own. Like I kind of think of like Red Dead 2, or even Ghost of Tsushima. Like those are based off of things that happen in
Mhm.
history, have a very distinct style,
Mhm.
and what
You would
goes on there.
love the Assassin's Creed series.
Well,
Yeah,
and I think of Assassin's Creed, yeah.
And
So,
I
but
mean, those games sell 15 million copies every time they come out, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla was the second best selling game that year, besides Call of Duty. So, also like Wolfenstein is really good at the alternate history stuff. The new ones.
how about a new horror IP? What's like any new horror IPs?
Last one we had was The Medium.
Yeah, and then
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
what The Evil Within was one.
Because that's been big on remakes, like Dead Space, which is sci-fi too, but it's
Mhm.
horror. That's a
Callisto
remake.
Protocol was a new one.
Okay.
I
Resident
think
Evil. Yeah.
I think a lot of the horror games are in those asymmetrical multiplayer games now. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes out soon, where like you play as like survivors and you have to escape.
Mm.
Dead by Daylight's like one of the biggest games ever.
Is that the one that's getting like a Nick Cage?
Yep.
Yep.
That was so random. All right.
What was the other one? Friday the 13th was a big one. So
That one's they shut that one down though, right?
yeah, but not because the game people weren't playing the game, and the game is actually still technically running, but it's uh what do they call it? Player share whatever.
Yeah.
It's not dedicated servers. What do you call that? LeRon, you're smart. What is that? When like you use somebody else's internet as a host and you all
It
ping to that
shared
internet.
something.
I'm sorry, my brain's not not working enough for
No.
that.
I want to say it's shareware, but that's not right.
No,
and
shareware is not right.
Yeah.
Shareware is basically what what now like content free like stuff is on the internet, like like copyright
Yeah.
free. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Outlast was pretty big when it came out. That was a new IP, but that's also indie. So
Well, yeah. So I think, man, would it be nice to have a new horror IP that could, rival Resident Evil, Silent Hill, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, we might get some. I mean, not what's his name? Shinji Mikami is going to start a new studio, so we might get one. I mean, that's his bread and butter, right? He's the Resident
Yeah,
Evil guy, so
yeah.
Yeah.
He's the father. He's the father of basically he's the father of gaming horror.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm also hoping the Bluebird team is creating a Medium sequel. Is that confirmed or is that just people hoping?
It's
That's
people
people
hoping
hoping.
right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
Right?
think
They're
that
so focused on Silent Hill
Silent
2
Hill,
right
yeah.
now.
yeah. So, well, does anybody have anything else to say about this topic? I think we covered it.
We need
Yeah.
more games in the cyberpunk world.
Mm, there isn't there a sequel in development?
There's a
Uh,
DLC.
I know Phantom
there's no
Liberty's in
sequel.
development, but didn't they confirm a sequel along with like 4 Witcher games? One of which is already canceled.
I have to look at that because I think I saw that they were kind of moving on from that, but then again, like with the resurgence that happened, like there's always that possibility.
Yeah, I mean they were supposed to make that Cyberpunk multiplayer thing, and they I know they're moving on from that. I have to look this up now because it's bothering me.
Though that should fit your modern yet future tech.
Yeah.
No, but you wanted fantasy in there too. Never mind.
Every CD Projekt game in development. There is a nice little timeline here. Okay, so we have I hate IGN. There's The Witcher 4, The Witcher Sirius, Project Sirius.
That's the remake, if I remember.
Yeah, of the first game, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Witcher Canis Majoris, which I think is the one that might have been canceled. Cyberpunk 2077 Project Orion. A new IP called Hadar. And then the unnamed Witcher. It's jeez. The currently unnamed Witcher 5 and 6, the only games confirmed without code names. So that's what's in development at CD Projekt Red.
Mm-hmm.
Gross. Slow it down.
And by development, we are just saying that we have intentions, but we're nowhere near even putting it on
Yeah.
paper.
Yeah, but the thing is too is like CG Projekt owns GOG, so they have income coming in regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna call it there. I want to thank
Nice
everybody.
discussion.
Yeah, I want to thank
Oh, yeah.
everybody listening on Patreon. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you can get it a week early on your podcast feed by going to Patreon for $1. We'd appreciate that, but if not, you can just watch it and give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you're there. LeRon, Stephanie, Pat, I appreciate your time as well. As always, thank everybody for watching and listening. Until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support.